2004, a young Muslim girl called Ishrat Jahan left her home in Mumbai, a small suburb of Mumbai. Less than 4 days later, she was found dead more than 500 kilometers away in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. Why did she have to die? Did she have to die? What was the cause of her death? Was she just an innocent Muslim girl? Or was she in fact a terrorist? What was she doing in Gandhinagar? But perhaps one of the most important questions is whether the other 3 men shot dead along with her were terrorists or not. If you as an Indian citizen are based in India, then you may not have the correct answers to these questions. What you may know is that the policemen responsible for the encounter killing are in custody awaiting trial. Curiously though, it appeared as if the Indian media, especially the English language electronic media, appeared to be targeting 2 specific men over the encounter killing. Gujarat Chief Minister Narendra Modi, who is now also the Prime Ministerial candidate for the opposition party, the BJP, and Amit Shah.
The scandalous attempt to use the Ishrat Jahan killing in order to implicate some of India's most senior politicians is entirely based on innuendo and hearsay. As far as the evidence, including now the CBI's charge sheet, shows, it will not survive scrutiny by the courts.
Now you question that whether the intelligence bureau is being used to frame some of the political adversaries. Well, the straws in the wind are indicative of that. The straws in the wind are indicative that they have got a political purpose behind pursuing this case. It is apparent from the fact that this was a dead case. This happened in 2004. A report was filed by the Home Ministry, an affidavit was given to the court, everything was this thing. How was it raked up? Under whose instigation it was raked up is not known. Particularly when there was no new evidence which had come.
The case has ostensibly been reopened at the direction of the Supreme Court. They've ordered it to be opened 10 years after the event. But again, there seems to be more politics in this than justice. Because really, if the justice system was going to do its job, it should have done it 10 years ago. Why are we waiting till now to suddenly find this particular case? And in my personal opinion, it's because of the rise of Narendra Modi, and because if there's one thing that threatens the Congress party politically, it's this man.
But the story of Ishrat Jahan does not begin in 2004 in June. It began when 2 men from Pakistan, Abdul Ghani Zishan Johar and Amjad Ali Rana, also known as Salim, made their way through to India illegally. The 2 men were known operatives of Lashkar-e-Taiba, an Islamist organization specifically dedicated to jihad, especially against India. To understand the Lashkar-e-Taiba and its objectives, it is necessary to go back in time to November 2008. These attacks by the Lashkar later became notorious as the 26/11 attacks on Mumbai. More importantly, they showed the perils of ignoring the risks posed in an asymmetric warfare situation.
The jihad against India is the new war against India. It is not going to be a war, in my view, on the border anymore. It's going to be in our cities.
Well, what we are experiencing in India is well and truly what would be recognized as an undeclared war. We have regularly had open and declared wars, but we have an undeclared war stretching from Jammu and Kashmir to the Indo-Bangladesh border, to UP, Chhattisgarh, where some of the most prominent public personalities of all political parties are being murdered in large numbers. Scores, indeed hundreds of security personnel are also being killed. Now, in this context, we cannot behave and expect what is quote unquote normal behavior during times of peace. Many extraordinary actions have to be taken to protect the state and the citizens of India.
The specific problem which arises in such situations in India is that the Indian machinery relies heavily on intelligence gathering to prevent such situations from developing into nightmarish scenarios such as 2611. RSN Singh is a retired officer from the Indian intelligence agency RAW who talks specifically about the necessity to nip such terror attacks, whether they originate from Pakistan or elsewhere, in the bud.
What has happened is that Pakistan embarked on a proxy war, and it was because of the expertise that it had gained in fighting the Soviet troops in Afghanistan along with the Americans. So they became experts in proxy war, and they exactly learned as to how to manage this proxy war, diplomatically and politically. And our perception did not change as far as warfare is concerned, and we still flounder in defining as to what constitutes war.
This operation of the Lashkar appears to have been part of their same jihad against India.
It is the military intelligence establishment of Pakistan which orchestrates the proxy war in India. So all these series of terrorist attacks that you see, or 2611, it was all actually stage managed, orchestrated, coordinated by the military intelligence complex, of which the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Dawood gang, is all an integral part.
It seems that there was a similar sinister plan which drew the two Pakistani Lashkar operatives, Abdul Ghani Zishan Johar and Amjad Ali Rana, to Gujarat. They befriended Javed Sheikh, also known as Pranesh Pillai, a relatively recent convert to Islam. Perhaps it was this which was the start of Ishrat Jahan's troubles.
Well, for quite some time, the information had started percolating about the involvement of Ishrat Jahan and her association with some of the terrorist groups. Initial stages, probably nobody took it very seriously. But when more evidence came and there was more corroborative evidence about her going and traveling with them to different places, helping in procurement of weapons and planning these things, and also providing them an alibi wherever they were asked or they were interrogated or asked by the questions or by the police. Now, more and more evidence when it started coming, she was put on a certain amount of a watch was being kept on her, if I may use the word surveillance. And during that period, I think the security agencies, wherever they were, they came to know that her involvement is much deeper what they had initially anticipated.
How odd is it when you think of an 18-year-old girl from a relatively conservative Muslim background to be allowed to travel with a strange man who, whose antecedents even the family would have known very little about. And then what was the reason for her to keep going to Gujarat?
Now you talk of Ishrat Jahan. Here is a 19-year-old girl who is gallivanting around with, a set of people, set of terrorists, including Pakistanis, going from one place to another. She is missing for several days and her parents don't deem it fit to even lodge an FIR.
Javed Sheikh was a history sheeter was known to the police. He already had 4 cases of rioting registered against him in 1997, according to the MHA records. He had already befriended Ishrat well before this encounter. She was later mentioned by newspaper accounts and media reports as his secretary. The hotel records of Hotel Mezban in Lucknow, however, tell us a completely different story. This is the statement of Mr. Irshad Ali, who was working as a receptionist at the Hotel Mezban.
I joined Hotel Mezban International MG Road, Lucknow in 2003 December as receptionist. The owner of this hotel was Sri Rais Ahmed Khan. I worked here until January 2009. For initial 2 to 3 months, my duty was from 8 to 10 p.m. Thereafter, I had been working permanently from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Checking out time was 24 hours in our hotel. Today you have shown me 4 photographs with the following description. Shri Amjad Ali or Akbar Ali Rana, Miss Raza Ishrat Jahan, Shri Muhammad Javed Ghulam Sheikh, Shri Jishan Johar or Abdul Ghani. After going through the above photographs, I identify and state that Shri Muhammad Javed Ghulam Sheikh or Pranesh Kumar Pillai had stayed in our hotel as Abdul Rahman. Miss Raza Ishrat Jahan stayed in our hotel as his wife Aisha. Shri Amjad Ali or Akbar Ali Rana or Salim or Rajkumar or Bunty had stayed in our hotel as Rajkumar on the dates mentioned above.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम जी, फरमाइए। कमरा दिखाइए जी। कितने? 2 काफ़ी है? 2 दिखाइए। नाम?
इशरत।
तुम भी ना बेगम, हमेशा भूल जाती हो। हाँ? अब तुम्हारा नाम आयशा है
जी।
क्यों? राजकुमार? चने खाओगी?
Since it was only few days after their stay in our hotel, that too for 4 times, we could easily identify them. Israt Jahan or Aisha was very religious and regular in 5 times namaz.
Also important is the statement of a certain Mrs. Alia Banu, who was the wife of Muhammad Rais. On being asked, I state that in the year 2004, in the month of May, I had gone to my parental village Ibrahimpur as it was mango season. My younger sister Safia Banu had also come to Ibrahimpur. During this time, my brother Miraj had also come from Mumbai. On being asked, I state that in the month of May 2004, my brother's friend Javed and a girl named Ishrat had come to our house in Ibrahimpur and stayed with us. Ishrat slept with me and Safia Banu on the roof. She did not talk much about her relationship with Javed and their purpose of visit to our village, but I found her very religious, as she was quite regular with 5 times namaz. The testimony of the owner of the hotel, Hotel Mezban International, is also quite interesting. Lot of media persons started approaching me and other hotel staff. Since it was only few days after their stay at the hotel, that too for 4 times, my staff could easily identify them from their photographs. My staff members informed me that Muhammad Javed Ghulam, also known as Pranesh Kumar Pillai, had stayed in our hotel as Abdul Rahman. Miss Raza Ishrat Jahan stayed in our hotel as his wife Aisha, and Shri Amjad Ali, also known as Akbar Ali Rana or Salim, had stayed in our hotel as Rajkumar.
So this sort of lends credibility to the story that maybe she was involved in a plot of some kind that she perhaps didn't know about, but that she was certainly there.
However, judging by the fact that she changed her name to Ayesha and also knew that the three men she was traveling with were using fake identities, it becomes more difficult to believe that she was as innocent as she has been hitherto portrayed.
No corroborative evidence about her going and traveling with them to different places, helping in procurement of weapons and planning these things, and also providing them an alibi wherever they were asked or they were interrogated or asked by the questions by the police.
Mohammad Wasi, a resident of Faizabad, made an explosive testimony in front of an Ahmedabad magistrate.
He approached me and informed that some of his known friend of Mumbra wants to purchase a pistol and requested me to help. He offered me commission of rupees 15 to 20,000. I promised him for the help, and for this purpose I approached one Shri Javed, son of Jamir, of village Jaganpur, who also knew Miraj. He agreed to arrange one pistol and quoted the price rupees 50 to 60,000. It was Sunday. A young boy and a young girl came to the house of Miraj in our village at around 1 to 2 p.m. carrying a black airbag. In evening at around 4 to 5 p.m., Miraj called me and introduced me to the young boy as his friend Javed, who had come from Mumbai. He informed me that they were together in Dubai also. Javed was also carrying a mobile set, which was unusually bigger in size. Javed asked me about the pistol during discussions. Mohammad Wasi further states, "Next day morning, I came to know that Miraj had fallen down and broken his leg. I went to his house where I saw another young boy seating in his house, whom Miraj introduced as Salim. Javed and the young girl, whose name was Ishrat as per Miraj, again came back to the house of Miraj. I informed Javed that the weapon could not be arranged and returned the advance money to him.
काम नहीं हुआ।
हम समझे नहीं।
वो जगनपुरी वाला जावेद पता नहीं कहाँ चला गया, पता नहीं पैसे वापस दे के गया।
कुछ परेशानी?
पता नहीं, कुछ पता नहीं मुझे, पैसे देकर चला गया।
In evening, Miraj requested me to allow both Javed and Salim to sleep in my house. Accordingly, they both slept in a house, while Ishrat slept in the house of Miraj with his sisters.
सलाम वालेकुम भाईजान।
वालेकुम सलाम।
बैठिए।
ये अपने जावेद भाई।
वाह, ये भी हमारे जावेद भाई मुंबई से, जिनका जिक्र हमने किया था।
तो फिर बहुत सही जगह आए हो, अपने 50,000 में मिलते हैं।
बस 50,000? इंसान की कीमत बहुत सस्ती होती जा रही है।
पैसे लाए हो? काफी जरूरतमंद मालूम होते हैं। कल आओ इसी समय, यही मिलते हैं। चलो।
खुदा हाफिज।
From his testimony, it appears that Javed Sheikh was shopping for pistols and a Sten gun sometime prior to 2004 February. What is crucial is that he was there with Ishrat Jahan and Amjad Ali Rana.
या अल्लाह, ये गाड़ी किसने रोक ली? कहीं पुलिस तो नहीं?
The question which has to be asked here is this: did Ishrat Jahan actually know any of the two other men, Abdul Ghani Zishan Johar or Amjad Ali Rana, and did she accompany any of these men outside Gujarat before June the 14th, 2004, the date of the encounter? Was Javed Sheikh a gun runner? And if so, was Ishrat Jahan accompanying him on these missions to buy guns? Can a gun runner be deemed an innocent man? Can somebody accompanying a gun runner be deemed innocent? That Javed Sheikh and Raza Ishrat Jahan were there with Amjad Ali Rana, also known as Bunty, was independently corroborated by at least 2 other people according to the CBI charge sheet itself.
In the month of May 2004, at the time of purchase of Indica car, Javed had brought one of his friends at our house and introduced him as his friend Bunty. Bunty stayed in our house along with us. After the encounter death of my husband, I came to know that the person named Amjad Ali, who also died in the encounter, was the same person named Bunty who had stayed with us at our house. Now, on being shown the photograph of Amjad Ali, I identify him as Bunty.
That testimony was of Sajida Sheikh, Javed Sheikh's wife.
Out of the cash of 2.5 lakhs, he had paid back 1 lakh, and from the remaining 1.5 lakhs, Javed had purchased a second-hand Indica car. On Javed's return from Oman, he also brought a satellite phone which was in packed condition, and hence I assumed that it was newly purchased.
Well, you know, this group, which was associated with Ishrat Jahan, it has been on the radar of the security agencies for quite some time. And they had been making use of the satellite phones to defeat any interceptions or any interdictions by the security agencies, because satellite phones are considered by them as very safe.
Unknown to Ishrat Jahan and her 3 accomplices, the IB had actually picked up the chatter originating from the satellite phones. Phones which Abdul Ghani Zishan Johar and Amjad Ali Rana were using to talk to an area commander of the Lashkar called Muzammil in Pakistan.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। हाँ, जगह हमने देख ली है। हाँ, बस वही जा रहे हैं। इंशाल्लाह काम हो जाएगा।
Now, these phones were being used by them for contact, which we were able to find out, for the persons in Dubai, some of the groups in Dubai, with the Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives in Pakistan, and also some of the ISI operatives. Now, during these, when they went to Gandhinagar, from Gandhinagar also, these satellite phones were used. And when these phones were being used, or when they were communicating with their counterparts in other places, Ishrat Jahan used to be present there, Ishrat Jahan was there.
Perhaps the two liked Narendra Modi's Gujarat so much that they wanted to travel to Gandhinagar again and again. However, this seems highly unlikely. What seems far more probable is that the two were traveling to Gandhinagar on a reconnaissance mission. If so, then what was the reconnaissance for?
गांधीनगर का मुआयना हो गया कि नहीं?
जी।
इस बार दिखा देंगे मोदी को।
इंशाल्लाह।
Was there. And this is not the first time that Ishrat Jahan had come to Gujarat. She had come there earlier, accompanying these persons, and had also visited some other places. And she had always been a part of the conspiratorial cell or the group which actually was involved in all these plannings and all these violent activities that they were planning in Gandhinagar.
The Lashkar had a number of Hindu leaders on its hit list for a very long time. Lal Krishna Advani or Lalaji, Bal Thackeray, Praveen Togadia, Ashok Singhal, they were all on the hit list of the Lashkar, except that none of them was in Gujarat at the time of the Ishrat killing. No, only one man was present in Gujarat at the time of the encounter who could be counted as a fish worth attacking by the Lashkar.
गांधीनगर का मुआयना हो गया कि नहीं?
जी हो गया।
इस बार बताएंगे मोदी को।
इंशाल्लाह।
Now, on perusing the death slip receipt dated 19th of August 2004 of Hazrat Musa Soha Qabristan of Ahmedabad, Sunni Muslim Waqf Committee, I state that the said death receipt was prepared in token of having cremated the person by name Abdul Ghani Zishan Johar, aged 20 years, a resident of Nar Nanak, Kalerwadi, Gujranwala, Punjab, Pakistan. It is reflected in the receipt that the reason of the death is encounter and the place of death is Khotarpur village.
That then was the statement of Shri Abdul Ghani Abdul Qadir Sheikh, who was working at the Hazrat Musa Suha Qabristan, the cemetery for Muslims in Ahmedabad.
या अल्लाह, ये गाड़ी किसने रोक ली? पुलिस तो नहीं?
क्या किया जाए?
इसकी तो
नहीं,
वो आ रहा है, पुलिस वाला ही लग रहा है.
कहाँ से है?
बस यहीं से.
यहीं से कहाँ से? चलो निकलो बाहर. बाहर निकलो. हाँ चलो जल्दी. अरे चलो. जय माता दी. हाँ ओके सर. जय माता दी. चलो, इंफॉर्मेशन पक्की है. लश्कर के 4 आतंकवादी आ रहे, एक लड़की है. चलो. हाँ चलो जल्दी. अरे चलो.
Curiously though, some of the most telling evidence comes from a man who didn't have any axe to grind in the Ishrat Jahan encounter killing. That man is David Coleman Headley. David Headley was indicted in the 26/11 attacks as the man who conducted extensive reconnaissance on behalf of the Lashkar and who was being interrogated in Chicago by the FBI. The question that also has to be asked is how David Headley could have known about Ishrat Jahan and the plan to assassinate Narendra Modi unless Ishrat was indeed a Lashkar operative in reality. It is worth remembering that Ishrat Jahan was killed in 2004. The interrogation of David Headley was only much later in 2010, so that there could really have been no axe for David Headley to grind in this particular situation.
हाँ, जगह हमने देख ली है. हाँ, बस वही जा रहे हैं. इंशाल्लाह काम हो जाएगा. खुदा हाफिज़.
The sad thing is that what Headley said has hardly been reported in the Indian press as much as has been what happened to Ishrat. So the Ishrat story, whenever it's been on the front pages of our newspapers, across the country by the way, has been about her and about her innocence, which we've decided in the media, and nothing, almost nothing, about what Headley told Indian investigative agencies.
Unfortunately, it transpires that Headley's testimony was not included by the CBI as they considered it to be hearsay. A bit later in the day, a letter from June the 25th, 2010 emerged, which was sent by Daniel Clegg, points person for the FBI in Delhi, to the Intelligence Bureau. The second part of this letter says, Zaki told Headley about a female suicide bomber called Ishrat Jahan, who was recruited by Muzammil. Zaki-ur-Rahman Lakhvi is a top Lashkar leader and military area commander currently in a jail in Pakistan. Muzammil is also believed to be an area commander of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. However, there are a few elements within the administration in India who have completely different, if bizarre, notions about the origins of the terror attacks on Indian soil, with the references to be made to the 2001 Indian Parliament attacks or indeed to the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. One such man was an IPS officer called Satish Verma, whose views on the origins of the terror attacks of 26/11 and even those on the Indian Parliament in 2001 had already attracted attention owing to the sensational, if bizarre nature of his claims. According to Mr. Money's letter, the IPS officer Mr. Satish Verma, who was heading the probe into the Ishrat Jahan encounter killing, said that the December 2001 attacks on Indian Parliament and the 26/11 attacks on Mumbai were orchestrated by none other than the Indian government.
It's very interesting that you have an investigating officer who felt and gave a statement that, well, 2001 attack on the Indian Parliament was the handiwork of the Indian intelligence agencies. Well, I was just surprised and shocked to hear such an
If Kasab had not been caught, if those telephone conversations had not been intercepted between him and his 9 comrades and the people who were directing the operation from Pakistani soil, we may have had a situation where we wouldn't have been able to prove that India was a victim of terrorism at all on that day.
Well, initially when the government decided in 2009 to go further into this case, they appointed a SIT, a Special Investigation Team. It was to be headed by a very outstanding officer who knows terrorism, who knows law, whose credibility is very high. He was there for some time, he left the thing. He said that is, well, I am not prepared to handle it. Probably there was certain pressures on him, but there may be, or may not be. But the fact is this, that he was posted in Delhi, he was sent to Vadra. And after that, I think the officer has probably not returned back to Delhi. There was another officer who was asked to this job. He also probably said, no, I can't do this work. What were they being asked for is a matter of investigation. Why did they give it up? It's not a voluntary organization or something. As a police officer, if you're given a responsibility, you're supposed to do that. Unless you find that it is totally unacceptable or it is totally impossible for you to work in the way that you would like to work. When these 2 officers did not do it, an officer was selected who had a total clash of interest in this particular case and against the people that they were investigating. Firstly, there had been a long history on record of the certain amount of acrimonious exchanges between the then IB officer, Rajendra Kumar, and the investigating officer or the head of the SIT in this particular case. And there had been series of allegations which had been made against this officer by Mr. Rajendra Kumar. And those were under investigation, they were investigated, and the officer was probably found to be at fault. And of course he had that grudge. Now if that was so, then he should not have been destined as an investigating officer.
Luckily, however, for us, it can now be confidently asserted, despite bizarre claims to the contrary, that the 26/11 attacks on Mumbai and the Parliament attacks of December 2001 were indeed the handiwork of jihadi terrorists.
You know, what was most essential in this case was to arrive at the correct facts. How do you arrive at the correct facts? In case the investigations are done to find out very objectively, very impartially, without any preconceived notions, by examining the available evidence and not by creating evidence in support of what you want to prove.
The CBI, quite clearly at the behest of their superiors, is misusing the Ishrat Jahan episode in an attempt to fix political opponents. All the background, all the clear evidence of her involvement with terrorists is being studiously ignored. The Let website had pronounced her a martyr who died in the cause. David Headley independently confirmed that she was a terror activist working for Lashkar-e-Taiba. There are many other issues connected to her, including the fact that a young woman from a conservative Muslim family went missing. She had visited Gujarat before that. She was in the company of Pakistani nationals who had clearly come to commit acts of terror.
What is really frightening about the investigation, not just of this particular case, but of any case to do with jihadis, is that the Congress Party, which has been in power in India for 10 years, has gone out of its way to promote the idea that Hindu communalism or Hindu groups are the real threat to India. This was something that Rahul Gandhi apparently told the American ambassador on WikiLeaks. And even if WikiLeaks can't be trusted, we have Digvijay Singh, a senior secretary of the Congress Party, a former chief minister of Madhya Pradesh, a man of immense credibility to ordinary Indians and to anyone else, and should have that kind of credibility, who released a book after the 26/11 attack on Bombay, which in my view was the worst act of terrorism on Indian soil. And the book's title was 26/11 RSS ki sazish, a plot by the RSS. It was so absurd, that idea, that, you know, the book shouldn't have been written. The book has sunk without a trace. But people like Digvijay Singh, Untold, the other Congress former chief minister of Maharashtra, who's tried to support the view that the attack, that the jihad is actually a myth, and that it's Hindu communal elements who are doing all this. And that is very frightening.
Have we reached a stage where the news media has to be actually present during an encounter for it to be declared a bona fide action by the Indian security services?
The Ishrat Jahan case brings to the fore a far bigger issue of jihad with wide-ranging implications for Indian national security. The concern is that this issue is being overlooked by some short-sighted politicians for electoral gains. The dangerous game of trying to prove terrorists as innocents to settle political scores is an old one in India. But at whose exact behest was this being done in this especially important case is something which warrants a proper investigation. Can we expect such an investigation soon? Meanwhile, terrorists attempted another assassination on Narendra Modi in Patna in 2013. Luckily for Indian democracy, this attempt was also foiled.